Hello, I'm Li Jianhua. Welcome to Global Business Europe. Our top stories. China's biggest memory chip maker clocks in a $500 billion IPO as Beijing accelerates its push for tech self-reliance. A big week for big tech. Nvidia reportedly offers OpenAI a $250 billion backstop for its huge AI data center. China slams Donald Trump's new tariff tactics, but they already face challenges closer to home. And UK Prime Minister Andy Burnham doubles down on domestic issues during his first week in office. But what's his plan for China? Well, China has a new tech titan. The country's biggest memory chip maker is now the Chinese mainland's biggest listed company. Changxin Memory Technologies, or CXMT, has made a spectacular debut in Shanghai, with shares surging 470%, pushing its valuation close to $500 billion. Our Shanghai markets correspondent Timothy Pope gave his reaction.
The CXMT debut itself was astonishing. We use words like surge all the time, and on days like this, I regret that because it leaves me sort of without a significantly dramatic word to describe a company gaining almost 500% and becoming the Chinese mainland's most valuable listed company on its first day of trade. CXMT closed 465.8% higher, giving it a market valuation of around 3.3 trillion yuan. Now, that does come with an important caveat, however. Only 6.73% of the company's shares were freely tradable today. And with different groups of shares locked up for periods ranging from 6 months to 3 years, it's going to be some time before the market faces a sort of meaningful test of that enormous new valuation.
So who are CXMT and why are DRAM chips such hot property? So DRAM stands for Dynamic Random Access Memory. Basically, it gives our computers, smartphones and servers space to think. Opening and running any application needs memory. The more DRAM you have, the more applications you can run at the same time. So CXMT is China's leading maker of DRAM memory chips and is seen as a symbol of Beijing's push towards technological self-reliance. The global DRAM market has long been dominated by Samsung, SK Hynix and Micron Technology. CXMT is the world's fourth largest and had a market share of nearly 8% in 2025. But Beijing wants to reduce its dependence on foreign chips and is looking for CXMT to be a competitive domestic producer in a field currently dominated by foreign companies. And I've been speaking to Rob Knight from the London-based tech venture capital firm H3 Capital.
I think it's a natural maturation of the market. I think like any established economy, you're seeing these building blocks being built out more and more domestically. So there's no external constraint or external risk. So it's purely natural to me. And the domestic market is huge. So this company will support a very vast and growing market.
And Rob, you know, AI models usually grab the headlines, but memory chips rarely do. So how critical is DRAM to the next phase of AI development?
It's like saying how critical are bricks to buildings. I think they're absolutely essential. They're pretty much the main thing that a computer uses besides the pure CPU. You can't understate the importance. They're used everywhere. So I think having this kind of foundry that can make the chips from high-end to low-end, high quality to low quality is, again, pretty essential. And it's a pretty building block-oriented company like an NVIDIA or a Micron.
So compared with global leaders such as Samsung, SK Hynix and Micron in terms of technology, so CXMT's market share is about 8%, about 9%. So how do you see the potential of the company?
I think it's the classic disruption theory that, you know, with any new commodity supplier, they come up by undercutting on the lower end chips and build their way up to higher value chips. It's what Intel did in the late 70s and 80s. And I think you'll see the exact same thing here, that the technology may not be absolutely cutting edge right now, but they'll build and quickly catch up to the Samsungs of this world in due course.
And do you have a timeline? Do you know how long it would take probably for the company to catch up with the top players?
I would suspect. Well, barring any sort of international interference in terms of selling components, you know, to make these chips, you also need really high-end lithography and these parts that come from often the Netherlands. So barring any other international political scenarios, you know, this is probably within a decade, maybe sooner. But of course, you do have Western governments that see a lot of strategic value in potentially blocking these too. So it'll be interesting how fast and how quickly they can purchase their own complete supply of manufacturing parts.
And looking beyond this IPO, so what does it tell us about the broader direction of China's industrial policy?
I think It's harder to tell from this IPO. It was a very small float, and frankly, it was priced very low. If you look at the market cap estimated at IPO, it was about 1.5 times revenue of the current year, which is quite low of a multiple for any sort of tech company. So I think it's hard to project this out. But again, I think it shows national winners being built that are able to stand on an international course rather quickly.
Well, let me bring you to the United States. There is also a big week for big tech, with reports that one of the world's most valuable companies is ready to throw its weight behind a data center for OpenAI. Our correspondent Siobhan McCall has the details.
Thanks, Zhenhua. Yes, tech giant NVIDIA is in talks with OpenAI to guarantee $250 billion in financing for a data center. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. It would help the ChatGPT owners secure one of the largest AI infrastructure projects ever planned. The site is a 10-gigawatt hub under development by SoftBank in Ohio. NVIDIA's guarantee would cover the lease and debt financing, but it would not cover the NVIDIA chips used inside the center. That would require additional financing. Now, it's not a direct investment. Instead, it would help the project raise debt on more favorable terms, as OpenAI is currently an unprofitable private company. The deal would be a big step towards OpenAI reducing dependence on cloud providers such as Microsoft and Amazon. And for NVIDIA, it would guarantee demand for its chips for many years. But some critics say it's another example of circular financing in AI, with NVIDIA set to fund a purchase which ultimately ends up with it getting revenue from chips, inflating AI demand.
Well, Siobhan, it's a big week for big tech, and the earnings of some of the biggest tech companies in America are landing now. So what do we know so far?
Yes, a really big week. 4 of the Magnificent 7 will be reporting earnings this week. On July 29th, it's Microsoft and Meta, and then on the day after, it's Amazon and Apple. Magnificent 7 stocks have underperformed on the S&P 500 this year amid uncertainty about returns on AI and concerns about AI infrastructure spending. Stocks in Google's parent company Alphabet fell around 7% last week after it announced its second quarter earnings. Well, the results beat expectations, but investors were concerned after it raised its projected expenditures on AI infrastructure. So what can we expect from this week's results? Well, Microsoft, for example, analysts expect growth of 14% year on year in quarterly revenue. But investors will be keeping the closest eye on its cloud business. Growth in that is expected to be around 40%. Hitting or exceeding this will signal that AI demand is translating into revenue. But if it misses this target, questions will be asked.
Well, some are beating expectations, some are falling short, apparently. So what do we know about the Fed Reserve's interest rate decision today?
Yeah, that is coming. That's expected on July 29th. But it's one of the most unclear decisions in years. The US Central Bank has used forward guidance to communicate about the likely future course of monetary policy. But this has changed under new chair Kevin Warsh, who's shifting towards strategic opacity. He thinks financial markets have become too dependent on Fed guidance. But analysts are warning that a quieter Fed risks increased volatility and sharper swings in stocks and bonds, which could lead to higher interest rates. So what's likely to happen with this decision? Well, analysts mostly expect that interest rates will be left unchanged at a range of 3.5 to 3.75%. Annual US inflation cooled to 3.5% in June. The Fed target is 2%. Oil prices have dropped today after the US paused strikes on Iran. But if higher energy prices and tensions with Iran were to continue, there could be an interest rate hike on the cards in September. And the Fed meeting is part of a pivotal week for global markets, with the Bank of England and the Bank of Japan also set to announce interest rate decisions. Back to you, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you, Siobhan, for the update. Thank you. Well, let's have a look at other business news. Pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca has beat profit forecast thanks to strong growth in its cancer treatment sales. Net profit for the 3 months to June rose more than 2% to just above $2.5 billion. The company says it is on track to meet its goal of $80 billion in global revenue by 2030. The profits in China's industrial sector have climbed nearly 19% in the first half of the year. The electronics sector was the major driver of the growth, with profits nearly doubling between January and June, fueled in part by the rapid expansion of AI. China's summer box office, including pre-sales, has topped $800 million. That pushes the country's total box office revenue this year above $3 billion. Leading the summer lineup is the domestic animated feature All Wishes Come True, praised for its fresh take on its classic Chinese legend. Comedy Kung Fu Soccer and the sci-fi adventure The Decisive Moment are also delivering strong performances. Fast fashion retailer Shein has posted a $99 million quarterly loss. Sales dropped after Donald Trump removed an import duty exemption for small packages, while the company said unrest in the Middle East was also hurting demand. The announcement comes as Shein reportedly seeking a valuation of up to $50 billion as it prepares to go public. But China says it could take retaliatory action over new tariffs imposed by the US, which Donald Trump claims are designed to combat forced labor. Our correspondent Nick Harper is in Washington. Nick, great to see you. So already we see a lot of pushback against these latest tariffs.
That's right, plenty of pushback and international condemnation from the trading partners who now find themselves on the sharp end of new tariffs. This announcement last week covered about 60 trading partners around the world. It covers almost every single good that's imported into the United States. And these countries are facing a range of new tariffs between 10 and 12.5%, all coming off the back of various investigations that the US has been doing into labour practices in those individual countries. The US is basing this on Section 301 of the Trade Act, but we have seen that pushback, in particular from China. The Chinese Commerce Ministry has said that it firmly opposes these tariffs, calling it a typical act from the United States of unilateralism and protectionism. And also, in terms of those investigations by the US into labour practices, China pushing back by saying that it has consistently opposed forced labour and it has a comprehensive system of labour laws and regulations, also pointing out by contrast that the US hasn't ratified its own forced labour convention. China also saying that it reserves the right to take all necessary measures, therefore the potential that we could see retaliatory tariffs being placed by Beijing on US goods entering China. Also China saying that it's asking the United States to correct this erroneous practice and completely remove all of these new tariffs. So pushback internationally, but also domestically as well, because since these tariffs were announced, we've seen lawsuits being launched by two small businesses here in the United States, suing the Trump administration, saying that these new tariffs, based on Section 301, actually overstep the authority and the ability that the president has to place tariffs on countries around the world using that particular section. We've got two small businesses, a spice importer based in New York and a watchmaker based in California. They may be small businesses, but they potentially have that possibility of overturning these international tariffs, because this lawsuit has been filed by the Liberty Justice Center, the same organization that filed the lawsuit that ended up in the Supreme Court, that back in February those justices said that the US administration had overstepped its authority in the reciprocal tariffs that Donald Trump placed on multiple countries. Of course, those being overruled and these new tariffs coming into effect as a result. But with the US government being sued, with this international condemnation from around the world, it's not clear if these new tariffs will remain in effect or whether these legal challenges might overturn them.
Thank you, Nick. That is our correspondent Nick Harper in Washington. This is Global Business Europe. Still ahead. How will the new UK Prime Minister approach relations with China? One leading advisory firm calls for a 10-year plan.
Everything is a business story.
Welcome back to Global Business Euro. Our top story. China's biggest memory chip maker clocking a $500 billion IPO as Beijing accelerates its push for tech self-reliance. Well, it's been a week since Andy Burnham became the new British Prime Minister, the 7th in 10 years. His first announcements have focused on domestic issues, but what about his international policy, especially China? I'm now joined by our correspondent, Jen Copestake. Jen?
Yes, Andy Burnham says the immediate priorities for his government include tackling the cost of living, and this includes removing VAT on home electricity bills, ending rough sleeping, and shifting more power away from Westminster to England's regions. Now, he's already set up an office in central Manchester called Number 10 North. This is where he's held the first meeting of the National Economic Council with the new finance minister and regional mayors from across England. But while the focus has been domestic, business leaders are now looking for signals on China. China remains Britain's fourth largest trading partner, and many companies will want greater certainty over the future relationship. Now, one early clue to that future comes from the appointment of Foreign Minister Ed Miliband. In March last year, the former Labour leader and energy minister restarted the UK-China energy dialogue and signed a clean energy partnership. Now, last week, he also had a bilateral meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi at the ASEAN Regional Forum in Manila. Now, Burnham himself has long-standing ties with China. He visited Beijing during the 2008 Olympics and, as mayor of Greater Manchester, led trade missions to China while encouraging investment and partnerships between businesses and universities. Back to you.
Oh, thank you, Jen. Thank you. Well, a leading British tax and business advisory firm has called on Burnham to have a 10-year plan for strengthening economic ties with China. Winnie Tao is the head of Blake Rothenberg's China Business Group.
The last 10 years, we have had a lot of ups and downs with the UK-China relationship, starting with a glamorous golden era, but then we have seen both the business and political relationships and diplomatic relationships go cold and warm. And I think this sends a very confusing message, particularly towards China, as to how we should establish a healthy relationship between the two countries. So I think, first of all, up to now, what we can observe is that Andy has expressed overall a warm and engagement type of attitude towards China, which is encouraging. He personally led a trade mission to China back in 2018 and even boarded on a high-speed rail. And in very recent time, in April this year, he has also expressed some warm outlook towards the UK-China relationship. And I think what his challenge will be is how he can blend this outlook into his 10-year plan. He has focused on creating more job opportunities to young people to the UK. And I think in a way he could think about how his foreign policies, particularly how he could work in a pragmatic spirit with China to bring those opportunities to the younger generations.
Well, Winnie, if we look at the personal history of Andy Burnham, he used to be the mayor of Manchester, and the city is quite traditionally welcoming and more friendly to Chinese investment. What do you think it means for Chinese international business community?
I'd like to hope that Andy will bring the similar type of experience and introduce the same thing to the rest of the UK now that he is Prime Minister. One thing that we should note is that Andy has appointed Ed Miliband to be his Foreign Secretary. And we can observe that, for instance, when Ed Miliband was visiting China last March, when he was Energy Secretary, he has also adopted a very similar pragmatic and engaging type of outlook in China. So he visited Beijing, I think he was in Tsinghua University, and following his visit, he was able to renew a 10-year-old UK-China clean energy partnership. So I think that's encouraging. And very recently, last Thursday, Miliband was able to meet with the Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister in Manila. And it was great to hear some keywords from at Miliband, which hopefully represents what Andy Burnham's approach will be.
What are the challenges for existing Chinese outbound companies operating in the UK right now, and how can they overcome them, and what lessons can be learned?
The challenges often comes from a cultural aspect because the Chinese and UK businesses do operate in slightly different ways. I think we need two things. Number one, I often explain to people that the Chinese people as well as companies know about the UK a lot more than how the UK business community know about China. I would encourage not only the political leaders but also the UK people to visit China and get to work with Chinese businesses. What I really hope for is that I think the UK has a great offering in establishing global brands, marketing, as well as research and development opportunities. I think this can really create a very good partnership with the industrial volume that the Chinese companies can bring to the UK.
Well, Slovakia's President Peter Pellegrini has begun a 3-day state visit to China, with economic and trade cooperation expected to top the agenda. One project expected to be discussed between the two sides is Slovakia's first EV battery gigafactory, jointly developed with Chinese partners. Our correspondent Li Shuang has more.
Located in the town of Surani, the battery gigafactory marks a major step in Slovakia's ambition to become a hub for Europe's electric vehicle supply chain.
For Slovakia, this is a 1.4 billion euro investment. It means 1,300 new jobs. It's the second largest investment.
Jointly developed by China's Goshen and Slovakia's Innobat, the project broke ground last October. Production is expected to begin by the end of 2027. Even before the first battery rolls off the production line, demand is building.
The first production line, which is 10 gigawatt hours of production, is already being taken by Volkswagen. We are also getting a lot of requests from other European OEMs. I'm very optimistic. We will be expanding phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 in the next 5 to 10 years. I think we could easily grow to more than 40 gigawatt hours.
The project is part of a broader expansion in China-Slovakia economic ties. Since 2020, China has been Slovakia's largest trading partner outside the European Union. Bilateral trade reached $8.6 billion in 2025. Analysts say the relationship has evolved beyond trade, with investment increasingly integrating the two countries into European and global industrial supply chains.
Slovakia is, as we all know, is situated in the center of Europe and enjoys a solid industrial base, making it an important node for Chinese enterprises seeking to enter the European market. As Europe advances its green and digital transitions, the two sides have large potential for cooperation in smart manufacturing, the digital economy, new energy sectors, logistics, infrastructure, and other fields. Slovakia, in turn, can enhance its industrial competitiveness by attracting more Chinese investment.
As President Pellegrini prepares to meet Chinese leaders this week, projects like the Surani battery plant offers a glimpse of how the two countries are moving toward deeper industrial and technological cooperation.
We are hoping in the future we can hire more and more local technical talent. I believe this project will contribute a lot, not just for the local community, but as well as the electrification effort in Europe.
Slovakia adopts pragmatic cooperation attitude towards China and got a lot of benefits from this cooperation. Then this visit will help send a positive signal to other European countries and to the whole European Union.
China and Slovakia elevated their relationship to a strategic partnership in 2024. Observers say President Pellegrini's visit is expected to inject fresh momentum into bilateral cooperation. Li Shuang, CGTN, Beijing.
A Swiss public transport company has partnered with Chinese tech giant Baidu to provide self-driving taxis. The autonomous vehicles are being tested and trained in the eastern canton of St. Gallen, with plans to launch the service next year. Our correspondent Julia Hamilton went along for a ride.
Paving the way for the future of public transport on the streets of Switzerland. Sitting inside one of these autonomous vehicles feels surprisingly normal, but the technology developed by China's Baidu that allows these vehicles to navigate the streets on their own is truly extraordinary. Amigo is a pilot project by Swiss public transport company PostAuto, which aims to offer passengers a self-driving taxi service. China's Baidu is providing the technology with its Apollo RT6. The vehicles are Baidu's sixth generation, level 4 fully autonomous electric robotaxis featuring 38 sensors.
The selection of our technology partner took over a year. We were very careful in selecting the right partner for this very important project for us. It's important for us to work with a partner who has proven experience in operating large fleets. And we were evaluating a lot of partners and suppliers from worldwide. And with Baidu, we have chosen the supplier to work with.
Amigo is operating 5 vehicles in the St. Gallen canton. Safety drivers are training the AI technology while keeping their hands close to the steering wheel and their feet close to the brakes. When in full operation, the vehicles will drive themselves, while supervisors monitor the fleet remotely, able to intervene if necessary.
Here we have really cameras, we have lidars, and the lidars, for example, they are really not like the camera, only see the objects, they see in 3D like the objects. And we have this on the roof of the car and also on the left, the right side, and the front and in the back. So that is the more or less like a 360 degree which you have and the possibility to see.
Autonomous vehicles are becoming increasingly common in China, where Baidu's Apollo Go robotaxi service now operates in several major cities. Projects like Amigo are allowing European transport operators to evaluate whether similar technology can safely become part of everyday public transport. Julia Hamilton, CGTN, Altstetten, St. Gallen.
Our headlines again. China's biggest memory chip maker clocking a $500 billion IPO as Beijing accelerates its push for tech self-reliance. NVIDIA reportedly offers OpenAI a $250 billion backstop for its huge AI data center. And China slams Donald Trump's new tariff tactics while they face legal challenges in the US. That is for Global Business Europe. Thanks for watching. See you again tomorrow, same place, same time. From all the team in London now, that's goodbye.